You've been reading one of the oldest instructions in human history completely backwards, and it's been quietly capping how far you can go. Love your neighbor as yourself. You probably filed that under morality, somewhere between be nice and don't be a jerk, a rule for Sundays, a line for people who like rules. But what if it was never a rule at all? What if it's an engineering spec for the exact frequency you broadcast from? Every hour, while you're building the life you actually want, by the end of this, the way you treat the people around you is going to look less like ethics and more like wiring. Start with the part nobody told you. That instruction has a hidden clause. As yourself, the whole thing hinges on it. You can only extend toward another person from the same place you already stand inside yourself. The signal you send outward and the signal you run inward are the same signal. One source, one frequency. So the resentment you carry toward the guy who's 2 years ahead of you, the competitor whose launch went viral, the friend who got the deal you wanted, that's not landing on them. It's marinating in you. You're the one living inside that frequency all day while you try to create. And here's where it gets practical. Your inner state is the medium you build from. Every project you start, every cold message you send, every rep, every line of code, every pitch leaves your hands carrying the charge you're holding when you make it. People feel the charge before they read the words. Goodwill has a texture, so does envy. They can tell. Think about the last time someone reached out to you running on pure agenda. You could smell it through the screen. The compliment that was really a setup, the kindness with a hook in it. You felt the dissonance instantly, even if you couldn't name it. Now flip it. You're broadcasting one of those two frequencies right now. The question is which one? This is what the old teachers understood that we lost. They weren't naive about human nature. They watched people scheme and claw and undercut each other for thrones and inheritances. And still they pointed at this principle like it was load-bearing. Why would something so soft sit at the center of something so serious? Because they understood vibration before we had the word for it. The frequency you hold becomes the frequency you live inside. Hold contempt for others, and contempt becomes the air in your lungs. You can't gift the world a state you refuse to generate in yourself. That was never a moral threat. It was a description of how a human being actually works. Let me make this concrete, because abstraction is where good ideas go to die. Picture two people building the same thing, same skill, same market, same starting line. The first one moves through the world keeping score. Every collaborator is a potential threat. Every win someone else gets is a subtraction from his pile. He helps people only when there's a clean return. He's tense, he's guarded, and he's exhausting to be around for more than an hour. People do business with him once. The second one operates from a strange kind of abundance. She assumes there's enough. She shares the contact, the insight, the shortcut, without running the math on what comes back. She's nobody's pushover, she's just unafraid. And here's what's wild. Opportunities seem to find her at an absurd rate. Doors open that she didn't knock on. The lazy explanation is luck. The real explanation is frequency. She's inhabiting a state of openness, and that state is doing the recruiting for her. People want to be near it. They bring her things. They vouch for her in rooms she's never entered. So which one are you? Be honest. Forget the version of you in your head. Look at the version that actually reacts when a peer wins. Because that reaction is the tell. That involuntary flinch when someone in your lane succeeds. That's you. Broadcasting scarcity, telling your own nervous system that good things are rare, and going to other people, you think you're just having a feeling. You're actually setting a thermostat, and you'll live at whatever temperature you set. Now you might be thinking, fine, but I've got real reasons to resent some of these people. They were fake, they cut corners, they got ahead unfairly, and maybe every bit of that is true. Hold that thought, because this is exactly where most people stay stuck for a decade. Here's the trap. You believe your resentment is a verdict you're passing on them. It reaches them never. It's a frequency you choose to generate, and you're the only one who has to breathe it. The person who wronged you is asleep right now, building, living, free. And you're awake at 2 a.m, rehearsing the case against them, paying interest on a loan they took out years ago. Loving your neighbor as yourself was always about refusing to let another person's behavior set your internal frequency. You extend goodwill because you refuse to live as someone who has to be earned into decency. That's sovereignty. That's the opposite of weakness. Feel the shift there. Goodwill stops being something you give away and becomes something you guard for your own sake. You're protecting the quality of the state you create from. Let's go deeper, because there's a mechanism underneath this that changes how you'll move tomorrow morning. The principle says, as yourself, for a reason that's almost surgical, whatever standard you hold for others quietly becomes the standard you hold for you. Watch how this actually works. The person who's brutally critical of everyone else's work, who scoffs at other people's launches, who finds the flaw in every win. Sit with him long enough and you'll find he's merciless with himself too. The harsh eye keeps running when it turns inward. It's the same eye, same frequency, pointed both ways. So when you train yourself to look at a stranger's effort and find the thing worth respecting, you're doing more than being kind to a stranger. You're rewiring the eye you use on yourself at the worst moments. The voice that judges your unfinished project at midnight is the same voice you've been aiming at everyone else all day. You've been training it without knowing. This is the leverage hiding in an ancient line. You want to be easier on yourself. Be genuinely generous toward other builders. You want to quiet the inner critic that's been sabotaging your momentum. Stop feeding it on other people. The frequency is one circuit. You can run warmth and acid on the same wire never. It carries one charge. And here's the part that should land in your chest. The people who create the boldest, who ship the scariest work, who put themselves out there without flinching, almost always carry an unusual amount of goodwill toward others. It looks like confidence. Underneath, it's safety. The whole register dropped lower, like retuning a track to 432 Hz in Attune, link in the description, and feeling your chest go still before you've done a thing. They've stopped bracing for attack from every direction, so the energy goes straight into the build. You've been spending enormous fuel on a war you didn't notice you were fighting. The constant low-grade comparison, the scanning of every room for who's ahead, the quiet tallying and rivalry, all of it runs in the background, draining the exact battery you need for the thing you actually care about. Goodwill is the moment you stop the leak. Let me hit you with the uncomfortable angle, because the empowering version is too easy and you'd forget it by lunch. Extending genuine goodwill is hard. The fake kind is easy. The performed niceness, the dead-eyed congratulations posted under someone's announcement, people feel that, remember. The real thing means actually wanting good for someone whose success threatens your story about yourself. That's one of the hardest internal moves a person can make. It means watching someone in your exact field blow up and feeling your throat tighten, and choosing deliberately to generate something other than poison. Faking joy does nothing. You have to generate it. You build the actual internal state from scratch, against the current, while your ego screams that this is a loss. That's a discipline. It's heavier than any workout. And it's the one almost nobody trains. Why does it matter so much for someone trying to build a life on their own terms? Because you specifically can't afford the alternative. The salaried person can coast on resentment for 40 years and retire bitter. But Fed, you're different. You're the source. Your projects come out of your state. If your state is contaminated, everything you touch carries the contamination, and the people whose trust you need will feel it and quietly walk. Your inner frequency is your actual product. Everything else is downstream. Think about what you're really doing when you build for yourself. You're asking strangers to trust you with their attention, their money, their time. Trust flows toward a specific frequency. People hand themselves over to those who feel safe, expansive, rooted. Nobody opens up to a clenched fist. Nobody bets on someone who's secretly rooting for them to fail so the comparison looks better. So the goodwill you extend is infrastructure. It's the ground your whole thing stands on. Now let me show you how to actually run this, because principles without practice are just decoration. Tomorrow, watch your reactions like a hawk. Forget your actions for a second. Watch your reactions. The micro flinch when a peer posts a win. The little drop in your stomach. Catch it in the act, and in that exact moment, do one deliberate thing. Wish them well and mean it, out loud if you have to. It'll feel fake the first 10 times. Do it anyway, because you're recalibrating your own instrument. You're teaching your nervous system that someone else's good is your wound never. Do that for 30 days and something strange happens. The flinch gets quieter, the scarcity loosens its grip. You start moving through your field like there's room for you, because the version of you that broadcasts scarcity has been overwritten by reps, and opportunities start behaving differently around you, the way they always did around that second builder. Let me sit you down with the version of this you've been running your whole life without permission. Scroll your feed for 10 minutes tonight and notice what your body does. Someone your age just crossed a number you've been chasing for 2 years. Watch the thing that happens in your chest before any thought arrives. A small souring, a reflex older than your opinions. That reflex has a job. It's protecting a belief you absorbed somewhere along the way, that there's a fixed amount of good in the world, and every piece someone else grabs is a piece gone from your pile. Scarcity wears the mask of motivation. It tells you the resentment is what keeps you sharp, keeps you hungry, keeps you in the race. It's lying. It's just narrowing the aperture you see opportunity through. Because here's what scarcity does to a builder, mechanically. It makes you secretive when you should be open. It makes you hoard the contact you should have shared, skip the collaboration that would have doubled your reach, undercut the person who could have become your biggest ally. Scarcity is expensive. It's been quietly charging you in missed connections for years, and you wrote off every loss as just how the game works. Now run the other frequency through the same machine. Abundance opens the aperture. You share the insight, and the person remembers you when a door opens on their side. You celebrate the peer's win, and you're now inside their circle instead of outside it, scowling. You collaborate instead of compete, and the pie you are both fighting over quietly grows. The generous frequency is, in cold strategic terms, the higher leverage play. The ancient teachers just got there a few thousand years before the spreadsheet. Sit with that for a second, because it scrambles the usual story. You are told the world rewards the sharp elbows, the ruthless ones, the people willing to step on a neck to climb. And sure, a few of them claw their way somewhere. But look at the ceiling on that strategy. Nobody wants to build with them twice. Their network is a graveyard of people they used once. They're sprinting up a staircase that's collapsing one step behind them, and they call the exhaustion ambition. The builders who compound, who are still standing and still growing a decade in, almost always run the generous frequency. People keep coming back. Reputation does the marketing. Old collaborators become repeat partners. The goodwill they planted years ago keeps bearing fruit they forgot they planted. That's not karma in some mystical sense. That's just what happens when your frequency makes people want your continued existence in their world. There's another piece of this that gets under the skin once you see it. The way you talk about other people, out loud to your friends, is reprogramming you. Every time you tear down someone's work over drinks, every time you reduce a peer's success to luck or fakery or some unfair advantage, you're not just gossiping. You're rehearsing a worldview. You're teaching yourself that success is illegitimate, that winners are frauds, that the game is rigged. And then you wonder why you flinch from your own ambition. You built a frequency where winning means becoming the thing you mock. Flip that, slowly, over weeks. Start finding the real thing to respect in people who are ahead of you. Study what they did right instead of cataloging what's wrong with them. Say it out loud. Watch how it changes your relationship to your own potential. When you stop treating success as suspect, you stop treating your own success as a betrayal. The neighbor and the self are wired to the same board. You've been soldering both ends every time you opened your mouth about someone else. Here's a hard one, and I want you to actually feel it rather than nod at it. The people closest to you, your friends grinding on their own projects, are the easiest ones to quietly resent. A stranger's win is abstract. A best friend's win is in your face, at the dinner table, in the group chat, demanding you smile while something in you curdles. That's the real test of this principle. Not loving humanity in some vague, glowing way, loving the specific person who's currently outpacing you and refusing to let it poison the bond. Because if you can hold genuine goodwill there, in the hardest spot, you've built something most people never build. The ability to rise alongside others instead of needing them beneath you. That's the frequency that turns a group of ambitious friends into a force. Everyone pulling each other up instead of secretly hoping the others stall. You want to know the real cheat code for building a life? Surround yourself with people who genuinely want you to win, and be the person who genuinely wants them to win. That whole dynamic runs on this one principle, scaled across a room. There's a deeper layer here that the old text was pointing at all along. As yourself assumes you've made some peace with yourself first. If you're at war inside, you have nothing clean to extend. The goodwill you send out can only be as real as the goodwill you've made for yourself. So this works in both directions, and you can start from either end. Get genuinely on your own side, and it overflows naturally toward others. Or practice extending it toward others, and it teaches you how to turn it inward. Either entrance leads to the same room. The frequency doesn't care which door you use. What it won't tolerate is the split, the person who's all sweetness outside and savage within. That dissonance leaks. It shows up as burnout, as the project you abandon right before it works, as the success you sabotage because some part of you decided you didn't deserve it. The frequency wants to be one thing. Your job is to make it a good thing, all the way through. Let me bring back those two builders, because their stories don't end where I left them. The scorekeeper eventually wins something. A deal, a launch, a number, and he feels nothing because the frequency he built it from has no room for joy. He hits the target, and the target goes hollow, so he sets a bigger one and runs the same empty loop again. He's wealthy and starving at the same time. The open one wins too, and the win feels like the natural overflow of a state she was already living in. The success adds to something already full, because there was no hole to fill. Same achievement on paper. Completely different life, because of the frequency each one was inhabiting the whole way up. You get to choose which of those you're becoming, and you're choosing it right now, in the small involuntary reactions you have to other people's lives all day long. Here's the reframe that ties it together. Love your neighbor as yourself is a description of a frequency available to you. A state of open-rooted goodwill that happens to be the most powerful place a human being can create from. The morality and the mechanics are the same thing. Generosity feels right because it works, and it works because of what it does to the one generating it. You. The people who feel like a force of nature, who seem to bend rooms and pull resources and make others want to build alongside them. They're inhabiting a frequency, and it's the most contagious thing on earth. People organize their lives around the chance to be near it. Let me close the loop on the practice, because 30 days from now, you'll want a way to know it's working. The first sign won't be other people changing. It'll be the silence at 2 in the morning. The case you used to rehearse against people who wronged you starts to feel boring, then irrelevant, then gone. You get the energy back that you were spending on the prosecution. That energy goes straight into your work, because it has nowhere else to be. The second sign is subtler. You'll catch yourself reaching out to people without an angle, sharing something useful with a stranger, and forgetting to track whether it comes back. That forgetting is the proof. The scarcity accounting has gone quiet, and the generous frequency has become your default setting instead of a thing you force. And the third sign is the one you'll feel in rooms. People start treating you differently before you've said much, because the state you're carrying walks in ahead of you. Conversations open faster. People trust you sooner than your track record earns. You've become someone whose presence registers as safe, and safety is the rarest, most magnetic thing you can offer in a world full of clenched fists. You can start broadcasting it this week. No permission needed. No money, no audience, no head start required. Just the daily discipline of catching the flinch and choosing the other frequency over and over until the choice becomes the channel you live on. One last thing before you go build. This isn't a trick you run for a season to attract opportunities and then drop once you've got them. The frequency only works because it's real. The moment goodwill becomes a tactic, people feel the hook in it, the same way you felt the hook in that agenda-driven message earlier. You can't fake your way onto this channel. You have to actually become someone who wants good for others, and the only way there is the daily reps, the unglamorous choosing, the 30 days that turn into a way of being. The principle has been waiting in plain sight for thousands of years, mistaken for a soft rule about manners. It was always an instruction for the most powerful state a builder can broadcast from. So tomorrow, when someone in your lane wins, watch what rises in you. That rising is the whole game. Meet it with something generous and watch what it does to the air you breathe while you build. Your neighbor was always you, wearing a different face, standing in a frequency you get to set. Tune it on purpose, and the entire world you're building starts to hum at the pitch you chose.